Nerd alert! Learning is important, right?
Yes, exactly. What a bunch of nerds.
Nerd alert!
Right.
Marketing Architects.
Hello, and welcome to the Marketing Architects, a research-first podcast dedicated to answering your toughest marketing questions. I'm Elena Jasper. I run the marketing team here at Marketing Architects, and I'm joined by my co-host, Rob DeMars, the Chief Product Architect of Misfits and Machines.
Hi, Elena.
Hello, we are back with your weekly Nerd Alert. Every week, I'll take a deep dive into academic marketing research and translate its complex ideas into simple, understandable language for Rob, and of course, for all of you. Are you ready to nerd out, Rob?
Oh man, if marketing effectiveness, nerdiness were a Marvel movie, I'm like ready for the post-credits chaos to begin. So bring it, Thanos.
I'm Thanos in this situation.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. As always, we'll link the research we cover in the episode notes. This week, I read a study titled Bayesian Modeling of Marketing Attribution. This is by Ritwik Sina and David Arbor from Adobe Research and Ashled Manispuli from New York University. Before we get into what I'm sure is Rob's favorite topic, marketing attribution theory, Rob, I wanted to ask you this. Do you think marketers are more afraid of being wrong in their marketing measurement or of admitting that they're uncertain of it?
Admitting they're uncertain. Nobody likes to look dumb. Unfortunately, I can't really help it for myself, but in marketing, I know that nobody likes to have 1,000 armchair CMOs chiming in because you feel uncertain about your opinion. So I think that's showing weakness is just an invitation to have other people throw down. So I would say feeling uncertain.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you can even see that in channels that marketers prefer to invest in. And it makes sense because if marketers if they're held to such rigorous standards of dollar in, what comes back, they end up probably investing more in certain channels like performance channels, digital, where you can clearly tie that in. I think you're right. I think a lot of marketers maybe wouldn't want to admit this, but they'd rather invest in a channel that's measurable with half the impact than a channel with double the impact where you can't prove it. Because if you can't prove what happened, it's going to be hard to get buy-in to move forward with anything. So That's one of the hard things is some of the best marketing channels are not easy to measure, but they're the most powerful channels. So sometimes they get missed out on. But today we are going to talk about a study that attempts to bring a more rigorous, interpretable, and probabilistically grounded framework to one of marketing's biggest challenges, which is multi-channel attribution.
That is some multi-channel vowels you got going on there. Syllables, multi-channel syllables.
We're going to go through them. So what this study does is it proposes a structured method for estimating the influence of different marketing channels on customer conversion outcomes. And they use this Bayesian approach, which I didn't know what that meant, but I guess it's a way of updating what you believe based on new evidence. So Bayesian models, they don't give just one fixed answer. It's kind of like adjusting your weather prediction every time you look out the window. So you start with a forecast, but if you see clouds, you revise your expectations. But back to the study. As most of us know, attribution models, they attempt to quantify how different marketing efforts, whether it's email, display, search, social, contribute to a consumer's eventual decision to purchase your product or service. And traditionally, models have been rule-based. Those are things like first-touch attribution or last-touch attribution, or heuristic, offering oversimplified views of how advertising influences behavior. And we've talked about those a lot on this show, some of the downsides of those. More recent data-driven methods have made progress, but many still fail to incorporate important dynamics such as the time decay of ad effects, interaction effects between multiple ad exposures, and heterogeneity in consumer responsiveness. But Rob, before we go further, what's your take on why the industry continues to rely so heavily on simple, rule-based attribution despite all of this technological advancement we've had?
I think it's a lot like simple models are a lot like comfort food. It's easy, it's fast, it's familiar, but it's probably not the best for you. There's nothing I like more than curling up with a family-sized box of Cheez-Its, but that's probably not the best thing in the world, but it's simple and easy. Last click just kind of sounds less scary than multi-touch probabilistic modeling.
Agreed. Especially if you're first starting out or you haven't figured out the complications, you haven't invested in more complicated measurement models. It's like last click attribution seems like it's the easiest thing to measure. It's simple. It makes sense. But the problem with it is we talked about this on a few nerd alerts ago. they found like last touch attribution, it's not only inaccurate, but it leads to worse outcomes because you make decisions based on it
Right.
that aren't accurate. So it seems simple and easy, but over time, it's leading to worse outcomes.
Like binging on a box of Cheez-Its.
Oh yeah, Cheez-Its are good though, but you're
They are
right.
good.
So this paper, what it does is it presents this Bayesian likelihood model, and it incorporates a range of different marketing phenomena. That includes the direct effects of individual ads and channels, the decay over time of those effects. So we mentioned that earlier. That's capturing how the influence of an impression diminishes over time. Interaction effects between ads. So for example, does the exposure to two channels amplify or suppress response? And customer heterogeneity, which allows for differences in baseline purchase likelihoods. And finally, uncertainty quantification for all estimated parameters, which I'll tell you what, I'm not sure what that sentence means, but it sounds important. So this model, it outputs a probability of purchase at each time point based on a customer's prior ad exposures, the channels involved, and their timing. So that's kind of, they take all that into account. And the probabilities, they're driven by interpretable parameters like baseline conversion likelihood, channel effectiveness, decay rate, and interaction strength. And that word, interpretable, is important. When they say that, what they mean is you can easily understand what the model is doing and why it made a certain decision. So, Rob, how important do you think it is for attribution models to be interpretable and not just predictive?
Well, first I have to say interpretable.
I know I messed up that
3
a few
times
times.
because that's intimidating. I have to imagine predictive power without being able to interpret it, right? Is like having GPS that only speaks Klingon. It's cool. Like that's really cool tech, but it's not really valuable in terms of helping with navigation. So I think it's really important to be able to leverage predictive power, but definitely be able to understand what it means.
Agreed. And I think we feel that with clients too. Like when we're walking through how a TV campaign performed, you could just put up, hey, here's your ROAS. But if they don't understand how you got there, if you're not walking through your methodology and it doesn't make sense, how are you going to feel confident bringing that number forward? So I think it's super important. It's not enough just to have a predictive outcome. Like, how did you actually get there? So let's talk a little bit about the methodology. So to validate this model, the researchers conducted 2 experiments. The first was simulated data. So they used synthetic customer journeys and applied the model to see if it could recover the original known parameters. And those results showed the model was able to find the right answers accurately. They had clear and confident estimates and very little error. And then in the second, they also used real-world data. They used a large-scale data set from Adobe Analytics tied to a travel and experience brand. This dataset included approximately 5 million users, 10,000 interaction events, and 9 marketing channels. What they did was they focused on a balanced subset of users who converted and those who didn't, and they used the model to estimate attribution values for each channel. And here's what they found. The model produced posterior distributions, not just for attribution values, but also for the underlying dynamics of ad exposure. So some different important patterns emerged. When a channel had a low direct effect, the associated decay parameter often showed a flat, uninformative distribution, which was expected. But when the channel had a meaningful impact, the decay parameter became well-defined, which allowed analysts to understand how long that marketing influence lasted. There was a rapid decay of ad effects, so many ad impressions, particularly from display and search, showed extremely short half-lives. This indicated that their influence on consumers fades quickly. And the model, it uncovered negative interaction effects when consumers received a high number of ad impressions within a short window, aka ad fatigue. This is something that we see with our clients too. So rather than reinforcing purchase intent, which you're often told overfrequency does, the overexposure reduced the likelihood of conversion. So that suggested you're going to have diminishing returns or even adverse effects if you have a heavy frequency. The model also found unexpectedly strong attribution to owned channels and offline touchpoints. These results challenge common assumptions about what drives conversion and highlights the limitations of models that ignore non-digital or indirectly measurable touchpoints, which comes back to what we were talking about earlier, the channels with last touch attribution. You're missing all of these touchpoints if you only rely on that. Ultimately, what this study does, it's pretty complicated, and to be honest, I had a hard time recapping it, but I thought it was really interesting. It offers a more robust approach to attribution. By leveraging Bayesian inference, the authors, they're able to quantify the magnitude, the duration, and the interaction of different ad effects. And they can also model how it varies between different customers and incorporate this degree of uncertainty that, whether we like it or not, we're always going to have in our marketing attribution. So I don't think that you have to go and ask for a Bayesian model. Maybe learn how to say it before you do that. But I think there's a good takeaway here, which is just that, once again, this is showing us traditional attribution methods, they might be oversimplifying reality. And more advanced models like this, they could offer a more deeper, accurate view of what's actually working in your marketing mix.
I'm really excited for the Rob GPT.
I was about to say.
I'm just going to say,
me
like,
too.
I've never wanted a Rob GPT more than now.
Well, let's see how it does. This study is like giving credit for a winning dish to the whole kitchen, not just the last person who sprinkled salt on top. Traditional models might say the last step caused the outcome, but this one looks at every ingredient, how much they combined, how long their flavors lasted, and whether adding too much made it worse. It's a smarter recipe for finding out what actually made the meal, or in this case, the sale, work.
That was really good. That was really good. I mean, you went full Thanos on this one, Elena. That was
No, I confused
that
myself.
That was some heavy nerdery.
I think it's interesting. Like, if anyone's in this sort of attribution challenge, it could be a good thing to look into, or it's just another maybe inspiration or way to make the case for moving on from like simplistic attribution methods. I mean, it could be a really big unlock for your brand and your company.
Absolutely.
If you could move away from that.
And I'm definitely going to try to work the word Bayesian into a conversation today. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Good luck.
While I'm eating Cheez-Its.
Nice. That's it for this episode of The Marketing Architects. We'd like to thank Taylor De Los Reyes for producing the show. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, and if you like the podcast, please leave us a review. Now go forth and build great marketing. Nobody's here to produce us, so hopefully this goes well.
Oh.
Nothing bad happens.
All right.
But we should be fine.
Marketing architects.